There are stories that connect us to ourselves and to each other. These stories reveal who we are and show us the many vivid colors of our truth. Welcome to Soul Wanderings, where we raise spiritual awareness and foster connections through these shared stories and personal experiences. Now, exclusively on KGRA Digital Broadcasting, your hosts, AJ and Natalie.
I love hearing that.
I
Your
know.
hosts. Thanks, Warren.
Yes,
Hi,
big
I'm
shout out.
AJ.
And I'm Natalie,
Big shout out.
to the people that put together like the intro.
Yes, we're so lucky to be here on KGRA Digital Broadcasting. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. It is Wandering Wednesday. Hashtag Wandering Wednesday. Hello, Wanderers. Welcome, welcome. Hello,
Here-
Natalie.
Hello, AJ.
Welcome.
Are you ready? Ready to wander?
Oh, I'm
with
ready to
me?
wander. I love wandering with you. It is the best. It is so good.
I definitely look forward to it.
Well,
And
that's
what's
good.
going to happen, because it is definitely unscripted. And
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like whatever, what are we going to talk about? I don't know. It'll happen in
know.
the now.
We will figure that out as we go.
It's so
But
true.
while we lean into that, what we will talk about, let's make sure we make a shout out to all of the Wanderers. Hello, Wanderers. Thank you for being with us, whether you're on KGRA Digital Broadcasting Facebook, Rumble pages, or over on live.kgradb.com. We are grateful to have you here. Thanks for being here with us tonight.
It's not the same without an audience. So we love the audience.
Love the audience. Grateful for the audience. Couldn't be here without them.
No.
Yes. Love to hear from you guys also. If you ever want to connect with us, email us at connect@soulwanderings.com and just share with us a little what if you had this as a topic, or I know someone who'd be great on your show, or maybe it's you. Maybe you are the one. Just send a little message. We
Don't-
love getting messages from you people, humans or other beings. We love hearing from all of you. So good.
It is so good.
So good. I want to lift this up. We'll do that here in a second.
Positioning.
Oh, yeah. Then I don't have to slouch into the microphone.
You know, it's amazing that we can adjust ourselves in many different ways. Isn't that like I can
Ooh.
there
Yeah, now I can sit up
positioning.
straight. That's my fault. I didn't communicate. Yes, technology is great. Love the technology.
Oh, communication.
So
Sometimes you don't know. Yeah.
we had a huge full moon this weekend.
Oh Lord, there was a lot of energy in that moon.
Solar flares this weekend.
Yeah, no wonder
Who
people were
was
crazy.
feeling all of that? I want to hear from you. Type yes in the chat on Facebook, Rumble, or KGRA. I want to hear, like, everyone around us has had an experience, is going through some kind of something or other. I've heard a lot of emotions. Like, people are just like feeling kind of like sadness and grief or
Mm,
nostalgia or something, you know? And there's always this common theme. It was a very powerful full moon.
it was.
What do you know about it? Do you know anything
Well,
about
I
what
know
kind of
that,
full moon it was?
Well, I just heard on Saturday night when it was full. We had our own little experience when we were together.
Natalie and I and some
Yes.
friends.
Had our own experience, and during that time there was like in our hometown there was like people jumping off buildings and intense
I
craziness going
forgot
on.
about that.
Yes.
That's right.
Someone jumped off the 8th floor of a building. That's just some
Crazy.
big energy going on when that intensity goes on.
Yeah.
And so I was feeling it when you were saying I've heard a lot of emotions, and I am I've been in my own swimming through a lot
Mhm.
of things, and I haven't been sleeping well. And some of it I attribute it to I just had a situation in my life on my mind and pondering it a lot. However, it can also be this other energy that's going on that is just not, I'm just not dipping into the sleep. So it's like sleeping at a certain level. So lots of dreams, lots of dreams. Active dreaming.
Mm.
Active dreaming about lots of different people in my dreams that were in my life or yeah.
We
I was
haven't
like,
had
that's a
that conversation.
fascinating.
I
Uh-uh.
also very
Wow.
vivid dreams too.
There's so much we have to talk about.
Yeah, isn't that bizarre?
That yes, vivid
And a
dreams.
friend of ours, like Kelly earlier, she was talking about like not sleeping, like
Yeah.
waking up every out within the hour with just a lot of active mind stuff.
Well,
Hello,
so
Charles.
the things that I know about so I don't know a lot and I probably brought it up on the show before, but this neutrino field. Now, for years they didn't know about neutrinos, but there is a lot more evidence about neutrinos now. Well, neutrinos are ejected from the sun, and they come from the sun. And I would imagine when that's and they're they pass through everything, through
Mhm.
people, through the planet. There's nothing that stops through, and they pass through. And some things that I've heard about it is they're programming. They also like contain code that programs us as humans. So as they pass through us, we take in some of that material or some of the programming from the sun.
Mhm.
That would be an interesting show to
What
have
are
more study about.
neutrinos?
Neutrinos are these. It's an aspect of the cosmos that passes through it's so small that it passes through everything. It goes
Mm.
all the way through people, through the earth. They
It's an
just move.
energy?
It's a we'll have to like Google it to see, but
Okay.
I I don't I think it's actually has substance and maybe it's part of what's the in between, like
Mhm.
the dark matter. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
the spaces in between.
The
It
space in
Yeah,
between.
there's no space actually. Everything it's all filled in with stuff and that we
So it's the
swim in this
space in
neutrino
between
ocean.
space.
Maybe the neutrino ocean.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, and so when that I would imagine when the sun flares,
Mhm.
there's a lot of energy that comes at
Right.
us in we don't I don't even know that we can scientifically understand everything that happens with
Yeah.
what is this connection between the sun
Mhm.
and all of us and the sun energy and all kinds of types of the energy.
Well, we have a friend coming to join us on March 13th for my birthday. Well, not for my birthday, but he
But for your
picked my
birthday.
birthday. Anyway, he talks about solar flares.
Oh, let's see if we
Yeah.
could
So we'll
I'll
have
do
to
some research on
take
neutrinos
note
and we'll
and
talk
let's
more.
ask him some questions about that because that's
Mhm.
a show coming up here in a couple of weeks. I'm really
Yay.
excited for him to join us.
I've got
He's
so
been on the show before years ago,
oh,
but
cool.
not for a hot minute.
Oh, I'm excited.
Mhm.
Yeah, so when that there's a lot of solar activity, it
Mhm.
affects our weather, it affects the patterns that we go, and I think that it's pretty easy to forget that when you're just caught up in the everyday human life.
Mhm.
All the all the much bigger picture.
Right. And how we're so affected, right? By the moon, by the sun, by the planets, by all of this energy outside of our planet, how it affects us as human beings and
Mhm.
animals and nature. And we just don't even understand or can grasp the concept of it all.
Right.
But I know there are people continuously trying. I don't spend my time doing things like that. That's way over my head. But I appreciate those who
It's just
do.
one more
Like,
thing for you to study.
I know. I that has been my thing this year. Let's just learn all the things.
That's what I wanna do. Let's go to school together, you and I, which
Yeah.
I think we are.
Oh, girl, we are in school together.
We
No doubt. You are my teacher.
what
There is
what
no doubt about that.
what more can we learn together? And then I can talk about it and learn
Mhm.
more as I talk about it. This is what
Mhm.
I love about my nature is I learn so much about um, aspects as I talk about them and work to articulate them. So we did this class for it ended up being a class for one yesterday, but I do find that sometimes I do the work and I show up and it happens to look like maybe it's for one person, but it was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And I was talking about energetic space clearing.
Mm-hmm.
I just have to tell you, as soon as I decided to do a class about metaphysical stuff and start with energetic clearing of space, and space, don't take space just to be just space in like way big space too.
Mm-hmm.
I proceeded my month-long lesson learning
Of
about
course you
that.
did.
Of course I did. And so I have had real life instruction from my life about why and how and what's in the background and the ether and all of that stuff and physical
Mm-hmm.
space cleaning and this ether cleaning, and maybe you got to know who to hire, like cleaning your windows, and who to clean your ether realm and who to trust, and I
And
don't want just
how to
anyone
learn
messing with
yourself
my
for
ethernet.
yourself. Right. Yes. That's true.
So it was it's been really lovely, and this is all along those lines of being a student.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a beginner's mind, the world is full of wonder. So I want to the wonder, and when you have like a childlike spirit, the world is wonderful. So today I got to hang out with my little nephew. Love
Love
that
that.
little man.
Yeah, he's adorable.
And he is adorable, and he's growing up, and he still has this adorableness. So I have to tell the story. This is like childlike wonder. So I have some juniper trees in my front yard, and they have juniper berries on them,
Yes.
and he
Love
loves to
those.
pick them. And so he was picking a bunch and just pulling them off the tree. And he's 6. And he was creating this trail from my front porch down the stairs, along the sidewalk for the birds.
Uh-huh.
And then he gathered up a bunch more and he's like, "Okay." I said, "What are you gonna do with those?" He's like, I'm gonna give them to the birds." So he stood on my front porch and faced the street with his hands open with these berries in it. And he's like, "Birds, come and get some food."
Aw.
And then he waited. And he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna do it again." And he got a little louder. "Birds, come and get some food."
Oh my gosh.
And then he did one more time. Louder in his best, strongest voice each time. And I'm just like, oh, this is amazing to have this little guy just giving it his whole spirit. And then he said, "Oh, I guess they don't want food right now." So then he put them together in a pile on the stairs.
Maybe later.
Maybe later. I said, "Well, maybe they're just a little shy."
Yeah.
So it was just
But it's so
I know,
sweet.
and the childlike wonder of just saying, "Okay, that's really," and
Mm.
I'm just amazed, and I've had a few lessons over the last few months about voice, using a voice, and I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I just watched him and just stood there and took in the moment
Yeah.
of
Just like,
just
oh, the
like,
innocence,
oh,
right?
yeah,"
It's so
and it's
beautiful.
so full of life.
It's
It's
so
like
good.
this just the moments that we can just, get distracted, but just
Mhm.
appreciated the fact that he's birds.
Birds, come get some food. It's so good.
I'm not even sure which birds eat the juniper berries, but they're piled on my front porch if any birds want to show up.
That's so good. Thanks for sharing that.
You're
I
welcome.
think the importance of that is like for us as a little reminder, humans, we are so good at getting in our own ways.
We are.
Just like go pick some berries.
Yeah.
Go pick some berries. Talk to
Just
the birds.
play like a kid.
Well, and as you get older too, like older, right? When
Uh-huh.
you're like you see seniors sitting on park benches and throwing little seeds and crumbs. I mean, we're still using the bird analogy, but like
Right.
they're in the
In the
moment.
moment. Right.
And it's such a beautiful thing. And I just, how many times do we do that as an adult, like from our 20s to 60s, like weird go, 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 go,
Hmm.
and taking a pause, like, what? What is that?
And even as adults, like like maybe ruining his little moment of just childlike wonder and
Mhm.
openness to the world, saying, and it could have been a situation where you can end up being like, oh, they don't like, you could poo poo on their little his little experience,
Mhm. Yeah, you could.
but
But why would you?
I wouldn't. It was very enjoyable, and it's a lovely memory I'm going to tuck away in a story for later.
I think that it'd be good for you to write it down. There, as my son was growing, I always said, I'm going to remember this moment forever and I'm never going to forget it.
Right?
But you do.
Yeah,
And then you'll have a memory pop up because you're going through an experience. Oh, yeah, I remember that one time. But they're not as easily available memory wise as they used to be when they
it's
were
true.
more fresh in the mind,
Yeah. It'll be
So,
birds. Come and get some food.
yeah. That'd be a great title to one of your chapters.
It's coming. Gonna be that. It's gonna be
Mhm.
course material.
Mhm. Yeah. I just want to share. Charles is always in the chat room. I just got to give a shout out to him. Also, Bobby. They're always in the chat room. You guys, thank you so much.
I haven't
Um,
read much of Descartes, but
Charles wrote, "Let's call neutrinos dark matter photons." I thought that was funny. And then he just put a quote in here: "Life is an eternal dance of learning, unlearning, and relearning." It's so beautiful.
it is so
I love it
beautiful.
when you guys share. Thank you for sharing in the chat room. That's so awesome. We love it.
You get it, like communication.
I feel like that's one of the reasons why I love to create. One, I mean, it's very therapeutic for me, but lately the things that I've been creating are very childlike and
Yeah.
they make me giddy. Like I literally do happy dances as I'm creating. I'm like doing the thing and I'm like in my chair, just like, look at how cute this is. Like it's just so much fun. And I want everyone to have that in their adult life. Please be childlike. Right, in the right moments.
Right.
We don't need you acting like a toddler at a corporate meeting or anything.
Remember, that reminds me of a memory of this guy I was hanging out with one time. Love that man. He literally, I don't know, he would just have ways of being young at heart, even though
Mhm.
he was older than me. And one time he literally sat on his butt and like kicked his feet like a temper tantrum in the middle of Costco. I'm just like,
I admire people who
my
are free
gosh,
like
he
that.
did.
I look at people and I'm like, "Wow, I wish." I mean, there are things about me that are silly and goofy like that, but I don't think I could ever see myself laying
Yeah,
on
he
the floor
totally
at
just
Costco.
just did it. Ah! Like, oh my gosh.
Did you tell him no? He could not
I
have
can't
that.
even remember why it came up, but it was really funny. It was probably like some thing around I remember it being around where they, do the food samples or something, but it's maybe it was because they didn't have any left or
That's funny.
something.
Kind of.
I
I don't know how I would like a grown man doing that at Costco, but anyway,
it was just a one-time
it's
thing, but
fun.
it was funny.
I want to shift gears a little bit. So, childlike behavior, love it. But tonight we're going to be talking about something much more serious.
Okay, let's switch to serious.
I mean,
Or serious, more serious than that.
yeah, with all due respect, serious. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. So, last week we talked about aliens
Mhm.
and abduction and all kinds of activities with extraterrestrials
It
with human
was
bodies,
such a
and
good show.
it was a great show, great guest. I'm so grateful she's sharing her story. Like, right, those stories are so important to share. So we're left in the dark so much. Also, tonight we're going to be talking about aliens. I love that we have 2 weeks. We get these topics sprinkled throughout our soul wanderings. And, soul wanderings isn't just about like the topic the guest brings, but about the guests themselves,
Mhm.
right? We're talking about them and who they are and what kind of work they've done and experiences in life they've had. But our guest tonight is an author, a nonfiction author, which I love true stories, especially ones like this. So she wrote, well, I don't want to talk about the book yet. I want her to talk about the book. We'll
Yeah.
pass on that and let her talk about the book. But like she's been around. I actually saw her on a show. I think it was with Jimmy Church. And it wasn't too long ago. I think it was like last year. I didn't get to listen to the whole thing, but I remember the name and I was like, "Ooh, she's someone I'd want to have on our show." And then her agent reached out to me and was like, "Hey, are you interested in this guest?" And I was like, "Yes, that would be awesome." So I've been really excited. She's been booked for a minute. So finally, her time has come to hang out with us. How do you feel about another story of aliens? Another one that's not a happy feel good one,
Wow.
because
I
it's
learned a
definitely
lot.
not.
I learned a lot in the show in last week, and I
Mhm,
learn a lot having these conversations. So I look forward to it. Uh, there's so much out there that people experience in their individual
mhm,
experiences. Not everyone on this planet gets an experience with aliens, so it's really fascinating to hear
mhm,
the encounters or personal
mhm.
experiences.
Yeah, and this is a story of someone else that she wrote about. This is not her personal experience. So there's a lot of research that goes into
Mm.
that and a lot of interviewing, I would imagine, and going to the places and doing the things. And so I think that's a really cool, like on that point of view, that side of things, right?
I admire people that are really good researchers and
Mhm.
write from that frame of reference.
I agree. Oh, sorry. I got distracted because I was looking at the website. There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. Everyone thinks I can multitask, but here I was like,
Pause for
what?
insight.
Yeah. We're going to pop the website onto the page as we always do as our guest comes on. You guys will be able to look around there. Uh, but I haven't read this book. I don't like to read the books before we interview the guests, and I know a lot of the guests like us to read the books first. That's a lot of reading in a week for each guest.
That's true.
If I'm called to it, I like to get the book. I already ordered this book. I ordered it 2 days ago. I was like, "I wanna get this book." It just looks that good. Like, the cover is like, it draws you in, but the story, like, when you read what it's all about, it just, oh, I wanna hear about that experience. So, I haven't read it as of yet, but I will start it
We
in a
get to
few days
hear
or
all about it.
whenever it gets here.
Some things
Whenever
come
it
faster than
arrives.
others.
Yeah, I think it probably might even be here. I've had a delivery and then I just wasn't paying attention, so and I should have just put it on my Kindle. I mean, then I would have had it instantly, but some books I like to have, like, in hand. And then I like the way they look on my shelves, all these UFO and alien and ghost and paranormal and all this. I like to see them all lined up. I don't know why. It's weird, but I do.
I understand. Hard books are lovely.
Yeah, I like them a lot. Okay, so what we're gonna do is go to a commercial break so we can hurry and come back and be with our guests. I know it's a couple minutes early, but why wait?
Why wait when we can get going
We're
on the
just hinting
conversation?
to what's gonna be happening and let's just get to it. So we'll be right back, everyone. Stay with us. Hello, Wanderers. Welcome back. I am AJ.
And I am
And
Natalie.
we're your host of Soul Wanderings, hosted on KGRA Digital Broadcasting. Hope you are following us at live.kgra.com or on KGRA's Facebook or Rumble pages. We love to have wanderers participate. If you guys have any questions, type them all up in caps. Tonight may be the night. You may have some questions. We are wandering with Pat O'Connell. She's a communications consultant for high tech corporations in fields varied as nuclear power, aerospace, and antibody library solutions. She is also a researcher, novelist, and a nonfiction author with eclectic interests. From science and medicine to history and psychology to metaphysics and the paranormal. And most recently, the author of Bleed Through, a story of aliens, demons, and pure evil in Texas, of which we will be learning of tonight. Welcome to the show, Pat.
Hi, ladies. Good to see you.
Hello. Thank you. We are so excited to get to know you and your book, all about it. It sounds very intriguing.
Same here. I'm glad to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, we're delighted. So, Pat, on our show, we like to learn more about you, like who you are, before we get into the work that you've done and what you're putting out into the world. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I came into this being somebody with an open mind, but somewhat skeptical. I had come from kind of a technical background. Have been a technical writer, training developer for high tech industries for over 30 years, and marketing and you name it. And so, I was used to looking at things from, a very realistic scientific point of view. But I also had my youngest brother who I adored, and he believed he had been abducted by aliens. And there's a little bit of supernatural thread kind of running through my family. Um, when we were growing up, we lived in Connecticut in a house that was built in like 1735. So it was colonial times. It was right on the Boston Post Road. Benjamin Franklin came by there. Supposedly, the Marquis de Lafayette went to the tavern next door and got drunk, and then stayed at our house, which was the inn. And so my mom always believed that there were spirits in the house, and she was kind of the more open to spiritual kinds of things. And she was also kind of like an amateur archaeologist. So she would go up into the attic, which, this is a 270-year-old house, and she's digging around in the eaves of the attic, and she'd come out looking like a raccoon with dirt all over her. And she found like the uh, diary of the daughter of the people who built the house. It was boring as anything, but it was interesting. And she found, she had a metal detector, and she'd go around the yard and she'd dig up old coins and arrowheads and uh, the square-headed hand-wrought nails that were used to build the house. So and one night she saw, in the middle of the night, she got up. She and my dad had the downstairs bedroom facing the post road, the Boston Post Road. And in the middle of the night, she got up and she saw this little man sitting in the crotch of the big tree that was in front of the house. And she said he was all dressed in leather patchwork. And so she woke up my dad and said, you gotta look at this man. And my dad's looking, and I don't see anything. And my mom's describing what this man looks like and how he's behaving. And my dad's like, I don't see it. You're imagining things. And he went back to bed. And like a few years later, my mom joined the historical society and found out that in fact there was a man who traveled the Boston Post Road. There was a lower leg that went along the shoreline, Connecticut, Rhode Island, then up through Massachusetts and back to New York. And he would stay every night with a different family for his room and board. He would sharpen scissors and knives. So there really was a person like that, and he was exactly the way she described.
Oh, wow.
That's incredible. I love stories like that.
I can't explain it, but I think it's super cool. So
Absolutely. So your childhood was filled with little adventures like that. You would
That's
learn,
right.
learn you guys were open to the
Yeah,
supernatural and yeah,
yeah.
that's cool. I grew up like that too with my dad. I think it's a fun way to grow.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. The night of the I think it was 1965 November, it was in November, Northeast blackout. That was the first big Northeast blackout. And so we have this old house with fireplaces basically in every room. And so the den was originally the home's kitchen. And so the fireplace was huge. My little brothers could stand up in it. And so we had a fire going. We had the transistor radio on. We're roasting marshmallows and playing games. And one of our friends, one of my older brothers and I, our friends from high school, came by and he said he had seen a UFO on his way over to the house that night. So, there are, these little sprinklings of intriguing things that I don't know what
Mhm.
to do with. I don't know. I haven't had my own personal experiences along those lines, but I try. I keep trying.
It sounds like you were surrounded by people your whole life who were having experiences.
Yeah. Yeah, really.
Why do you think that you haven't had any personally?
Well, I have had some very brief or minor things happen. I don't know if I would just explain them away. Like if somebody saw a light in the sky and they said it hovered uh, for an hour or something and it slowly descended, I'd say, well, that was Venus and the Earth turned. So, it's set like the moon sets. Um, and so maybe there are things I didn't find unusual, but I have had some unusual experiences that I can't explain. So, but I have not had any of the UFO or alien kind. And there's a member on our team who had she had a massive UFO rectangular hovering over her. She had horses, so she had a ranch, and she had been out after dark feeding the horses. She was late feeding the horses, and she came out, and of course it's dark out, and she looks up, and there's this huge craft, rectangular, hovering over her, over like the pasture, and it's no higher, she said, than the top of a telephone pole. And she was talking about the kind of step down telephone pole that brings your service into the house, not the main telephone pole. And, I would love to have an experience like that. I want to have something that I can say, I don't care what anybody tells me. I know what I know and I believe.
Mhm.
So that's what I keep looking for.
I think most of us wanna have an experience like that. But although you have not had your own personal experience like that, what is your belief?
Well, I certainly think that there has to be other civilizations. I mean, it would be insane to think we're the only ones in this gigantic universe. So, based on things like the Drake equation, there are tons and tons of other civilizations. So the question is whether they're here or not. There are so many credible people who have seen things um, and experienced things that I can't I can't think of any reason they would have lied. I can't think of any explanation for why they would have mistaken what they saw. And I look at people like Dr. Uh, Mack, who investigated many cases of alien abduction, and he was this famous Harvard psychiatrist and well respected. And he came away from this saying, I think all of these people are psychologically healthy. So I can't explain away the experiences they tell me they had. I
Mhm.
can't, I can't attribute it to psychosis or lying or imagination or any misunderstanding or anything like that. So, I think it's possible. I don't know to what extent
Mhm.
they're here, um, but I think they are.
Yeah. Yeah, and to think that so many people and more coming out who are sharing their experiences, and a lot of them are very similar, and they've never even seen or talked to each other. Like, how do you make that up, right? There's
Exactly.
got to be something said about that because you cannot have coincidence after coincidence in that
Right.
way. Yeah.
Well, and my brother Jim, who started all of this, who got me involved in the Clay Wheeler case that I wrote about, he had a situation kind of similar to what you were talking about, where he and his wife uh, had these experiences that went along with what he believed were his abductions, where on the nights when he said he had been abducted, she noticed a strange smell in the house. And you never hear about that. Nobody talks about that on UFO or alien TV shows. And so he had an opportunity to actually talk to Whitley Strieber, who is like the most famous abductee ever, who wrote the Communion books,
Mhm.
and he was on a talk show. This was in 1990 or 91, long time ago. And Jim, my brother, is thinking, okay, well, it was a call in section of the show. And so he called in and he's thinking, I'm not going to get on the show. And sure enough, they put him on the show with Whitley. And he says, Whitley, on the nights when I have my abduction experiences, or what I believe are abduction experiences, he wasn't sure. My wife notices this weird smell. She said that it smells like smoldering campfire. And Whitley said, Whitley kind of got uncomfortable. And he said, well, that's one of those things we don't really talk about, because we don't want to put that into the lore. And so then people are going to automatically think of it. And even if they're imagining things, they'll add that to their fabrications. And he said, yeah, some describe it as wet cardboard or other other ways of describing it. But Jim hadn't heard of it, and nope, according to Whitley, people don't talk about it. So here's this coincidence that there is something that is common to other abduction experiences that people don't normally talk about.
Mhm.
That's fascinating that there would be a sort of detail left out that may
Right,
be like a validating factor for the people in the know.
right, exactly. And that's what I look at when I'm, my little skeptic brain is looking at this stuff and saying, how do I explain that? You
Mhm.
know?
I hadn't heard of the smell either until I think it was last
Yeah,
week.
last week she was
Last
talking
week she
about
Wow,
was
they
talking
kinda
about a
stunk.
smell. Yeah,
Yeah,
they
cool.
had an odor.
yep.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And it's interesting that it was not the abductee, but the family members'
Right,
experiences,
right.
Mhm.
because the family members would have a different experience, but perhaps their own experience of, like, being out of it or wonder what the effects are of being knocked out and being left unaware or things like that, the smell.
Mhm.
Right, and Whitley mentions, these screen memories that sometimes the partner who isn't involved in the abduction will remember things like, we had one of the children came into the room and they took you out. Well, no, it wasn't the children, it was the aliens who came and took you out, but they give that partner these false memories so they can explain away the experience, while and a lot of times, like you say, they may be paralyzed, so
Yeah,
they can't do anything about it. So that's interesting.
Oh, yeah, that's what
layers and
gets me.
layers.
Yeah, that's what gets me. Every story I've heard when there's other people in the room when they go through these experiences, how they're put in, like, some sort of, like deep sleep or trance or given false memories,
Right.
that just trips me out.
Yeah.
That is just wild to me.
Yeah.
So your brother started having these experiences. Was that when you started getting really interested in this type of like
I had
supernatural?
been I had been interested in the supernatural and possibilities for as long as I can remember. I've been open to all kinds of things. And but I didn't I didn't really know that he had been abducted or that he believed he had been abducted for a long time. He for a long time convinced himself that it was just he was having these really vivid dreams that were recurring,
Mhm.
and they were kind of disturbing and that sort of thing. And then one day he was with some colleagues that he worked with and was telling them about this, and they said, have you ever thought that maybe they're not dreams? And that's when he started thinking about it. And then he had other experiences where he would talk to somebody. So he's, as a result of having these abductions, he realized how traumatizing it can be. And he started to talk to people all over the world through like Facebook and um, other social media. And so he realized that he wanted to tell the stories of the abductees, whether what happened to them or what they believed happened to them was objectively real, or if it was some kind of psychological phenomenon, it dramatically affected their lives. And sometimes it affected their relationships. It could break up marriages, break up families. It could be very traumatizing. And so he wanted to tell their stories as faithfully as he could. So he started um, connecting with people all over the world. And then he decided that he was going to put together a TV reality show where that was to tell the stories of these abductees. And it was really hard for him to convince production companies that it wasn't about UFOs, because they would always say, how is this show different from other shows about UFOs? And he said, it's not about their vehicles. If somebody famous came to your house and knocked on the door, you wouldn't say, oh, hi, I'm going to go look outside at your car. you know he wanted to tell the stories about the people. He wanted to tell their stories. So that's kind of how I got to this point, because um, had he had talked to, like I said, hundreds and hundreds of people all over the world, was collecting information, interviews from them. Some of them he had filmed. Many of them he had met at conferences, and they realized that they had actually met before on a spaceship,
Oh.
when they were being abducted. Totally freaky. Um, and so he contacted me one day and he said, I've got this guy in Texas. Now he lived in Connecticut. I'm here in Texas. And he said, I've got this experiencer in Texas who has had, I mean, his experiences are way beyond just abduction. In fact, he even denied or was not sure he had even been abducted, though I think he was, because of the events he described to me. But he said, this is more like the Skinwalker Ranch story, with UFOs and aliens and demons and angels and weird creatures and possession and just ghosts and poltergeist. I mean, I'm running out of fingers to name off all the things that happened out there. And so, in this conversation, he's telling me, would you be interested in? He said, I can't cover this guy's story in an episode, 1 hour episode. I couldn't even cover it all if I did 3 hour episode, three
Mhm.
1 hour episodes. Would you be interested in writing a book or a screenplay or multiples? And at least vetting this guy, going and talking to this guy and vetting him to make sure I don't come down to Texas for nothing, if he's a nutcase. So I'm like, sure. And then he said, and by the way, the guy says he has shot and buried an alien. And
by the way,
and imagine that moment where little skeptical brain here starts spinning because I'm thinking, "Oh my god, if this is true, this is like the biggest thing ever to happen to humanity. If this is real and we can find proof."
right, because it would be a public situation, not something that's hidden behind closed doors where we're gaslighted and told it's not real.
Exactly, unless, we dig it up and then, the men in black come and take it away and this never happened. So that's still a possibility.
True.
Uh, but, um,
There is that.
so I was definitely drawn in at that point.
Understandably.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna ask how you got involved.
Yeah.
She answered it.
So you were an author beforehand, or this
Yes.
wouldn't have been a conversation, right? Write a book about it.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I've been I've been a writer all my life, so I just applied it in different ways.
Mhm.
These days, um, I've decided to do work that feels good, so I don't do as many client projects that are, the typical corporate projects. So I'm doing more interesting things, and I'm pickier about it.
Yeah, your time is valuable.
Yeah, and also I'm working on novels and uh, activism and all kinds of fun stuff. So
I love that for you. So the book that she is talking about, which we're gonna get into in more depth, is called Bleed Through: A True Story of Aliens, Demons, and Pure Evil in Texas. So we have about 5 minutes before break. Why don't you set the stage for us about what this book is all about, and then we can ask some questions after break.
well, this guy named Clay Wheeler was an aircraft repair guy, had his own shop at a little bitty airport in the middle of nowhere in Texas. And everything was normal, everything was fine. He was, getting a lot of clients, had several employees to help him. And he was the only one who lived there. He had a hangar with an apartment he had built on the end for him and his wife, and then an office in the middle. And nothing had happened for years and years and years. And then suddenly in 2010, he started seeing ships and then the poltergeist activity. And then there were aliens in his buildings and personality changes and all kinds of crazy stuff that happened.
And it all started occurring around the same time when before there was nothing going on at all?
Right. Yeah. It was just like flipping a switch, 2010, it all started. And he left there in 2013 because it had just ruined him.
Yeah, that's a lot of activity from a lot of different directions and dimensions and places all at once. I can imagine that would be too much.
Yeah.
3 years of intense experiences.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to write this book, and did you interview Clay yourself?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We interviewed Clay many times, went out there to the airport, met him at the airport. And he, showed us around and he sat in front of the camera as I asked him questions and he went through the stories that things that he experienced. And we are now getting to a point where we're I have more people on the project and we're tracking down some of the witnesses, the people who worked with him or who knew him during this time. So that's going to be a whole other book, to find out what they know of what happened. So we've got a lot going on, and there's the part about digging up the alien. So we've got that
Okay, wait,
coming.
what? You actually did that?
We have not done that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
we're working on it. We're getting to a point where we can do that.
Interesting. Wow. So there's so much going on, and there's still so much more to come.
Yes.
Mhm. How long has your book been out?
It came out last summer.
And what has been the feedback? How have people received the book?
It's been really well received. I just wish more people knew about it. I think if they knew about it, they would be interested. But um, I've been doing um, UFO conferences and paranormal conferences and various podcasts and things like that. So I think the word is starting to get out, but
Mhm.
I just would love for it to have more exposure because I think it's a fascinating story. We're working now on we've got the paperback and the ebook, and we're working on the audiobook. And I think that once the audiobook is out, a lot more people will be able to listen to it because they don't have time to read, but
Mhm.
they can listen while they're working or while they're driving. So I'm
I agree.
excited to get that out. Yeah.
I'm a big fan of audiobooks.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah, they're great. Um, because we have a couple more minutes, what for you personally, okay, through this whole experience of Clay's story and the time you spent with him and all the things you learned, was your most memorable moment? The one thing that stood out for you through all of this? Like a
Actually,
takeaway or a memory or
there were actually two moments that really stood out in my head. One was um, when I had pushed him and pushed him and pushed him to tell me more about the alien he killed and buried, and he would always change the subject. And finally, I just pinned him down and would not let him get away with not talking about it. And he was very nervous, and he got up and he walked around. He said, I'm just afraid that people are going to read this and think I'm some kind of an animal."
Mm,
And I said, "But you were threatened. They came into your home. They had weapons that you couldn't do anything about." And yeah, I said, "If it was a bear in your house, you would have shot it." And he said, "Well, maybe, I'm not sure." So that told me this was a tender-hearted guy who really didn't want he wanted to know these aliens. He wanted to know what they knew. He wanted to go for a ride in their spaceship. And one night he packed a bag. He sat out on the runway and with his bag that had he said he had 3 pairs of underwear and 3 pairs of socks, but he only brought 1 change of clothes because he figured they'd give him one of their jumpsuits to wear. So, I
oh
mean,
my
who thinks like that? So there was that, and there was another time when I was interviewing him, he was sitting out on the runway, and I said, "So would you say that this was an overall positive or negative experience?" And he said, "Well, I think it was negative." But immediately, as soon as he said that, you could see a whole change in his face and his eyes. And he just kind of looked up and he said, "But it was amazing. It was like being in the sci-fi channel every night. It was fascinating to look up in the sky and they're so close." And so it was like he had this love-hate kind of thing. And that's part of what convinced me of his sincerity. Now, maybe he imagined all of this or hallucinated all this. I can't say for sure. But whatever it was, I believe he believed it because I don't think you can fake those kinds of emotions.
Mhm. Yeah. Wow, what an experience. Looking forward to hearing more. We're going to take our top of the hour break. When we return, we get to wander with you for almost another hour. So good. Everyone stay close. Hello, Wanderers. Welcome back. I am AJ,
And I am Natalie.
and we're your host of Soul Wanderings. We're heard here on KGRA Digital Broadcasting. You can visit kgradb.com to learn more about us, our show, and the station. If you find yourself interested in becoming a member to support the station and our show, make sure you head on over to the shows and hosts button, head over to Wednesday night and Soul Wanderings, and it's there where you'll find discount tabs for you to take advantage of to get 30% off your annual or monthly subscription. I love that. I love saving money.
It's good to have a bargain,
Definitely.
and especially on quality stuff.
Yes, you'll get access to all of Soul Wandering shows. I don't know if they have all 7.5 years on there, but I think we have at
A
least
good
5
amount.
years on there. And then all the other shows on the station. There are so many, and there's constant new ones being added. It's just a good place to hang out if you're into this kind of anomalous conversation. It's and a crime or whatever. It's there's all kinds of good stuff on there. So make sure you check it out. That's kgradb.com. Tonight we are hanging out with Pat O'Connell, and she is the author of Bleed Through, a true story of aliens, demons, and pure evil in Texas. And just before the break, we got a kind of a base of what this story is all about. And we're going to learn a little bit more. Welcome back, Pat.
Thanks, guys. Good to be here.
So there was a lot of experiences going on with Mr.
Wheeler.
Wheeler, Clay Wheeler. I'm looking at Walker, the word Walker on here. Oh,
Right.
thank you. Clay, Mr. Clay. We'll just call him Clay.
The clay. Yeah.
And yeah. And all kinds of things, not just alien activity, but you bring up poltergeists, portals, all kinds of darkness. Um, let's kind of start at the beginning without giving too much away, right? Because we want people to
Right.
grab the
Right.
book. But you started this interview process with him, and what was it like? Like, where did his experience start, and where did they go from there?
Well, it started for him, like I said, in 2010, and it was kind of just a minor experience. There were he was awakened one night when a couple came out to the airport. They had seen a light in the sky that was behaving in an unusual way, and so they were trying to follow it. And of course, at the airport, the skies are wide open, and so they had driven out there. And so he went out and he was looking at it, and he realized, he said, I could follow that light. It wasn't like a plane, because he was in aviation. He knew what planes looked like. He knew what satellites looked like. He knew what things in the sky look like. So he tried following this thing, and he thought, well, that was kind of unusual, but he didn't think anything of it. And then but that got him started looking at the sky at night. And then he noticed these lights that would behave in ways that conventional craft can't. And so then he started playing laser tag. He would get a laser out, which you can't do now because they don't want you blinding aircraft pilots. But he would take a laser light out there, and he would aim it at one of these lights that was moving erratically. And he said it would jump. And they can't do that. A plane can't do that. Satellite can't do that. The space station can't do that. A blimp can't do that. And if you're looking at a star or a planet, they can't do that.
When you
So
say jump, like from one they'd be in one place and then go to another place really quickly?
right,
Yeah.
exactly. And then over time they would come in closer. So he could see that they were either saucer shaped or orb shaped, or there was one that was, he called it the eyeglass case, like the hard shell eyeglass case shape. So it was oblong.
Mhm.
And there were craft that either landed or hovered near the ground, on the airfield in that area. Some would come in fairly close, and others, like there were some ships that came in so close, there was no mistaking what it was.
Mm.
And he said he saw Mexican hat style. He saw an orb that was like this giant soap bubble. He said it had kind of an iridescent shimmer to it, like a soap bubble. And he said it sat there for a while, and then it rose up in the sky, and he thought, well, it's gone. And then it turned around and it dove into the ground. And it freaked him out because he's thinking, he's looking at the tarmac and thinking, where's the splatter, or what happened to this thing, or is there a hole in the ground, and it didn't make any sense. And so that was actually one of the things that happened fairly often, not just at the airport, but in experiences other people have been having in
Mm.
that same area, maybe within 20, 30 miles. They see orbs or ships that dive into the ground. So I don't know what that is. But he started seeing these ships, and this was like something he couldn't wrap his head around. But he became obsessed with getting pictures of them or film footage of them, and he was really frustrated because he couldn't either he didn't have a camera handy when one showed up, or it was so dark that the pictures he took didn't show anything, or they were blurred, or and this seems to be a theme that I see in the UFO community, where people say, we had this thing happening over and over again, and I tried to take pictures, and here they are, they look terrible, or I couldn't get any, or whatever it is. So that was something that he was doing to try to document these craft that he was seeing. And it turned out he didn't realize it, but after a while he wasn't saying anything to his employees, because you're working in the aviation industry, and that it's poison to talk about UFOs in that business. So he would have lost his credibility, if not his licenses to do business. So he never said anything. And so for a long time, he didn't know that his employees were having experiences too. Until one day, one of them was just fed up, and he called them out, and then of course everybody else started confessing what they had seen. And it wasn't just UFOs, as I mentioned. They were having poltergeist experiences, where one night Clay couldn't find his keys, and he said it was a big bundle of keys, and he said, I either kept them in my pocket or in the top drawer of my desk. I never kept them anywhere else, and I couldn't find the keys. And so his wife, this little apartment that he had built on the end of the hangar building, was just temporary, so that he and his wife could live there while they were building a house on some property they owned nearby. And so she was there unpacking things from their rental house in town. And so he hollered at her, have you seen my keys? And she said, well, are they in your pocket? No. Are they in your desk? No. And so, he was looking everywhere for his keys. And then suddenly the heater kicked on in the hangar. And it's, a hangar's 30 feet tall, something like that. And the heater is up in the ceiling. And he said, I heard the heater kick on, and I started hearing this little flicking noise. Well, he had attached to his keys this strip of plastic that's it's a remove before flight tag. So when they make a repair to an aircraft, they have this red tag that they attach to that part, and they remove it to make sure that everything's buttoned down the way it's supposed to be. I've checked everything. Okay, now I can remove this thing before flight. So he had that on his keys. So the heat kicks on in the hangar ceiling, and he hears this flicking noise, and he looks up and he sees this red flag, this removed before flight tag. And he's like, how in the world did my keys get up there? He had to get, a super tall ladder to climb up there. There's no way he accidentally lost his keys in the ceiling of the hangar.
That is wild.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's one of the, and that was like when they had that kind of a, meeting of the minds, and everybody in his crew was started confessing the things they had seen, then all of this stuff started tumbling out. They had seen shadow figures. He had seen a ghost or a shadow figure in the bedroom one night, and he woke up, but his wife didn't. And he looked down to the foot of the bed, and here was this, what looked like an old man. And he said, he was kind of hunched over, and he came out of one wall, and he walked across beyond the foot of the bed. And he said, right at the middle of the bed, he said, the man kind of did like this, like he was tipping his hat to him, and then continued on to the other wall and disappeared into the wall. And again, other crew members had reported seeing shadow figures like that. So the other thing that was really, I mean, it was one of the most destructive things that happened, was that there was something about whatever was going on, whatever influence was in that area, in that place at that time, it messed with people's personalities. So he said that the employees, when they clock in for work in the morning, their their attitudes would go dark. They would get mean and angry, and they'd be picking at each other and fighting and things like that. And his wife, when she moved into the airport apartment, she was the one who was most affected by this, whatever it was, this energy, this dark energy, this whatever. And he ultimately believed it to be like demonic and a possession. But
Mm.
there were several things that happened with her, and like one of the really crazy, you can't make this stuff up things. One morning, he said she woke up and her belly was swollen like she was 8 months pregnant overnight. And he's freaking out because he's thinking, what could have bitten her that would do this? What kind of illness could do this? Whatever it was, he's thinking, this is not good. This is dangerous. I need to get her to the doctor.
Mm.
And she didn't want to go. He chased her around. She fought him off, and eventually, throughout all this running around, she kicked him in the head and knocked him over, and he hit his head on the floor and knocked him out. And so he's out for I don't know how long, but when he wakes up, she's gone. And then hours pass. He doesn't know where she is. He calls around to everywhere she might have gone. Nobody knows where she is. And then a little while later, she comes back and her stomach is flat. No big deal. Now, that same morning, when she had this belly, he caught her in the fridge eating raw meat out of the fridge. They had hamburger meat that they were thawing for dinner that night. And she was eating the meat raw. And that kind of freaked him out too. That in the belly, it's like, what in the world's going on?
Mm,
So
that
that,
feels so heavy.
yeah. So that was, and the fact that he never found out what happened, what was going on with her. Uh, I can't think of a thing that could have done that to her, that could have caused her belly to swell up that much.
Well, it's
So,
not in the movies before. They've had some movies like, I just recently watched Dreamcatcher, which is an older one, but that does have aliens in it, and people's
oh,
bellies their bodies would swell because it was incubating the alien life form, which most often looks like a worm in movies.
oh,
But
oh,
also the
yeah.
raw meat is more like demonic energy.
Ah,
Yeah, and the fact that it was gone within hours. I
yeah.
mean, I don't know when it started overnight, but it was apparently it was less for less than a day. So if it was gestating some creature in there, it had to have a very short gestational cycle you know,
I
to be
know.
gone that fast. But um, he believed it was demonic, but I still don't know, like from a logical standpoint, what could have done that. if you don't talk about a supernatural explanation. I
Right.
don't know what natural explanation could explain that.
Did she have
Yeah.
any recollection of what she had gone through in that period of time?
She apparently did, but she just blew it off. She didn't think anything of it. And so she became. He said that she had started out. Um, she was very sweet and wouldn't swear if she had to, and really nice. And throughout this period of time, she became cruder and would start swearing, and she would become less considerate or outright mean and things like that. So that was the first big thing that happened. And then at one point, she was feeling like he thought she was feeling um, threatened or jealous of one or more of the women that worked for him. And, he was trying to reassure her that, you know, I still love you, and, there's nobody else, and all this
Mhm.
kind of thing. So he took her out to dinner. He was going to treat her to dinner, and he wanted to talk to her about this other woman or whichever woman he thought she was feeling jealous of, and assure her that they were no threat. And when he brought the conversation up, she got mad, and really mad, and she stormed out of the restaurant. And so he followed her out. They had come there in two cars. So he was standing, she went to her truck, um, and she had to go to work. He was going to have to go back to the hangar. And so he's standing there by her truck, and he's talking to her, um, at the holding, the door's open to her truck, and he's holding the door as she's talking. And then she slams the door with his hand in it. So she slams his hand in the door, and she takes off. And she goes like a mile and a half with him hanging off of the door of her truck. And
What?
yeah, I mean, he ended up in the hospital. He said he had broken bones on both arms, one leg, a couple of broken ribs, and abrasions all over. So he was a real mess, and obviously he had pain meds from all the damage that had been done to her. So that was the second big thing. And so then he said, yeah, he said that um, he told her that she needed to move out from the hangar for a while, because he said there's something here, and it's not good for you, and I'm worried about you, and I think you ought to go stay at your sister's house for a while until we figure out what's going on, or until we can get the new house built or whatever. And so she moved out. And then one day, everybody's at the shop at the hangar, and they're working on their airplanes. And um, his wife shows up with his 38 special revolver, and she starts shooting. And she just emptied the gun, shooting sort of at everybody. I don't know if she had anybody in particular that she was shooting at, but she unloaded all the rounds in that 38. And then she got arrested because, this is not good. This is beyond just swearing and behaving badly. This is dangerous. And so it was after that that he divorced her. Um, but so, you know, after that, he was living there at the airport by himself. And so he was pretty much the only one there. Uh, when the crew wasn't working at the airport, occasionally somebody would come out who, there were other hangars where people owned an airplane, and they would come out, but very rarely. Rarely somebody would, a pilot would stop there, make a pit stop, and get back in the air and go on to wherever they were going. But most of the time he was there by himself at the airport. So a lot of this stuff happened when he was alone, or on a few occasions happened when some of his employees or friends were there.
Did they mention anything that they were experiencing that was dark, like demonic, other outside of seeing figures?
They described some poltergeist things, like one guy lost his wallet, and it turned up in the supply cabinet, and there's no reason he would have been in the supply cabinet. And several of them had seen ships in the sky, but they didn't say anything. But for the same reason he didn't say anything, because this is an aviation business and it's the kiss of death. You don't want to talk about that stuff.
Mhm.
So and I don't know if they had any of the more extreme experiences, but they did see ships. A few of them saw aliens. And so that brings us to this whole other kind of thread, which is the aliens, the creatures that he encountered. So the first one he saw, it was actually when his wife still lived there. They were coming back from the store, and it was near sunset, so it wasn't completely dark, but whatever this was, there was an egg-shaped craft on the top of the hangar. And there was what he said would look like a stick figure, but it was so far away he couldn't be sure. But this little stick figure was moving toward the egg-shaped craft, and then it took off and went up in the sky. And that was basically a silhouette. So he couldn't get much detail out of it. But the big first encounter with aliens was he was now living at the apartment at the airport, and he's there by himself all the time, other than when his crew is there. And it was like 3 o'clock in the morning and he couldn't sleep. So he decided, I'll call my sister. She was working in China at the time. And so it was the middle of the day for her. 3 o'clock in the morning for him was 3 in the afternoon for her, pretty much. And so he called her and he's chatting, and he was kind of telling her about that there was weird stuff happening at the airport.
Mm.
And, he was saying, you wouldn't believe blah, blah, blah. And she's saying, well, try me, I might, And so as he's chatting with her, he was kind of an antsy guy. So he was pacing and walking around and fidgeting, and he just kind of absently walks over to the door that leads from the apartment into the office, the office was in between the apartment and the hangar shop. And so he kind of walks over to the door that leads from the apartment into the shop, into the office. And he's not thinking of anything. And he just kind of turns the knob and opens the door, I guess just thinking he'll check on things. And he said all of this happened in the space of a few seconds, but he said it really etched in my mind. He opens the door, and there are two little gray aliens, about 3.5 or 4 feet tall. And he said they seemed to be, they were all kind of grayish. It was like their clothes were silvery, their boots, their shoes, whatever they were wearing was silvery. And their skin was kind of a grayish silver, grayish bluish. And he said the weird thing about it was that as he pushed the door open, the two little aliens moved away from him like they were joined. He said it was like a gate moving, and they were one unit, which is another one of those weird things that me as a skeptic, I'm thinking, who would make this up? I mean, me as a creative person writing novels, I wouldn't think to make this up.
Mhm.
So, so that gave it credibility in my mind. So he said that they moved out of the way this way. And he said, then he looks over to his right, and there's this tall guy. Now, Clay was tall. He was like 6'4". And he looks over to this other creature. And he said it was probably as tall as he was. So, I mean, that's a big creature. And he said it was, as far as he could tell, he said it was naked, but there were no features on the body. So it was like a doll. It was tan skin, so it was not gray, it wasn't silvery, it was tan, he said it was like me, it was like my skin, tanned from the sun. But the head was huge, and it had bulging eyes, like they were too big for the sockets, and the lids closed top and bottom. And then he said on the back of the head there were these two protruding lobes behind the head. And so he looked at this thing and he thought, this is the bodyguard for the two little guys. That's what went through his head. And then, he said, then the big guy kind of stepped forward. Now, I don't know if he lunged or just in a benign way stepped forward. Either way, it scared the crap out of Clay. And he backed out of the room, closed the door, dropped the phone. And he said, I didn't open that door till the next morning, because I didn't know if they were still there or what. So, that was really his first close encounter with aliens. And it told him this was kind of, coming to the point where he feared the aliens came in stages. So this was the first stage where he learned that he can lock his doors all day long, but if these guys want to get in, they're going to get in.
Right.
So that was the first kind of, your home is not your own. You're not safe here. Now, but he had no sense that they would hurt him either. So there was nothing threatening about that first encounter. That's not the case with the second encounter. The second encounter, he and his secretary were, it was slightly after hours. Everybody else was gone. They were in the hangar, and they started hearing movement in the hangar. And it was just the two of them there. And his secretary saw like a small figure kind of darting around in the hangar. And she said, oh my God, there's a kid in the hangar. Well, they're out in the middle of nowhere. So if there's a lost kid, this kid is really lost. And how did that happen? And how in the world are they going to, find the kid's parents? I mean, they'd have to take it to the police or whatever, but it made no sense. But they were treating it like it was a child. And so the secretary's sweet talking, come on, honey, it's okay. It's okay. You can come out and all this. And then when they actually see it come out, it was darting actually behind. Of course, by this point, Clay is carrying guns. He had guns everywhere. Now, we're Texas, everybody has guns, but this was even more so. And so Clay is armed, and he sees this figure, and it kind of darts out, and he sees that it's an alien. It's one of those little grays. But then it darts back behind these, he had tanks, these big tall bottles of explosive gases. So like acetylene for welding, and other kinds of gases that they used for their work. And he knew he couldn't shoot at those tanks because they would explode. So this creature is darting around, and so it finally gets to where it kind of comes out from behind things that are dangerous to shoot toward, and he takes a shot at it, and he doesn't get any. He tells his secretary to get out, and the next thing he knows is that this creature starts emitting a blue beam out of his chest. And he said it must have been some kind of technology in a chest plate, but it created something like a laser beam or an energy beam. And he said it was about 4 inches in diameter. And it shot this thing out, and it cut through everything it encountered. So it cut through, part of an airplane, part of a scaffold, and then went out and cut a hole through the outside of the building. Now, this is corrugated steel. It cut through the outside wall of the hangar. And so now he knows, and he managed to get out, and his secretary had already gotten her out. And then the thing was gone. He doesn't know what happened to it, but he now at this point knows that they can hurt him. They can kill him. And he doesn't know why that thing discharged that beam. Now, it could have been defensive, or it could have been that it was trying to kill him. We don't know. But now he knew he was in deep trouble, and that he might not be able to defend himself. He might not be able to protect his crew. So this had him really freaked out and really on edge. And, because of all the things that have been happening to him throughout this whole sequence of 3.5 years, his health went downhill. When you get dragged by your hand for 1.5 miles and you have all these broken bones, that's not going to do you any good. And then, other things happened to him. And actually, there was one, speaking of things that happened to him, I told you about the eyeglass case shaped craft. So it was kind of an oblong shape. The first time he encountered it, he had a few crew members who were working late with him. And he said, "Oh, let's take a break and we'll do some laser tag with the UFOs." And so he does that, and he finds one that's acting strangely, and he starts aiming the laser at it, and it jumps. Well, then he does it again, and it comes closer. And so he hands the laser to one of his friends and says, "Here, you try it." And the guy does it, and then the thing comes even closer. And it scared the guy, and so he hands the laser back. Well, finally, Clay, and they could see in that, when it was sort of close, they could see lights at the top, maybe windows. But then the thing came almost directly over them, and then they could no longer see any windows, so they couldn't see what might have been inside. But what happened when that thing hovered over them was that Clay started to feel that he had this sense that it was like somebody was pouring a bucket of water in through the top of his head. He said it just kind of poured down through me. I got warm all the way down through me. And he said, I felt like it must have been, he said, I felt like they were trying to communicate with me. He said, I felt like what a computer must feel like when it's downloading data. And I thought, who would think of that? I mean, that's such a cool concept. First of all, to think that a computer would feel anything. But second of all, to think that this was a form of communication. And of course, one of his friends was saying, no, I think they were trying to kill you. They weren't trying to communicate with you. So he called that the headache beam, because after that sensation of warmth, he had the worst headache he's ever had in his life. And but it passed and he was fine. Later on, as so many things happened, and of course, now the rumors are starting to get out about the UFO, alien, paranormal stuff. And so clients are becoming more hesitant to use them. Things are going wrong, and his health is going downhill. So there was just this confluence of all these things, that his health deteriorated and his business deteriorated. And he just got sicker and sicker and sicker. And so at one point there was just him and one other employee, and that one employee called him out and said, there's that craft is back. It's hovering right over the driveway, uh, coming into the airport. And so Clay goes out there, and it was this oblong eyeglass case thing. And he said it was hovering so low that he was able to reach out and touch the bottom of it with his hand.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh my God. I mean,
No, thank you.
well, I mean, and I was envious in a way, scared. Don't know if I would have done that, but envious in a way to, if there really was this alien craft, I'd want to know more about it. And so anyway, I said, well, what did it feel like? And he said, it felt alive. It felt like wet leather. And that's another of those things that I thought, who would make that up? That doesn't, it's not something that's out there in the lore. It's not something that you hear all the time. And so anyway, he touched the thing, and the next thing he knows, it sprayed him with something. And whatever it was, it started burning his skin. And so his employee guy rushes him into the hangar where they have an emergency shower, because they work with chemicals and all kinds of things all the time. So they have to have an emergency shower in there. So he strips off his clothes and he's showering off whatever that thing sprayed him with. And his employee takes him to the hospital. And he said that he had really serious burns over like 30% of his body. And he said the doctors were arguing over whether he had radiation burns or chemical burns. And for a long time, I couldn't reconcile that. I'm like, how would they not know? And we have not tracked down the doctors yet, but I would love to talk to the doctors if I can. So, but then I started thinking, what if there's, if you know anything about the Bob Lazar stories about, he supposedly worked with the fuel source from the UFOs that they had at Area 51, that they were back engineering, and he was dealing with the fuel source, which he called Element 115. Well, I'm thinking, what if this ship was powered with Element 115 or some other kind of element that's very exotic and we don't know anything about? Could it be emitting radiation that would harm somebody, that would burn somebody? And maybe separately, it had this either defensive weapon or just a knee-jerk reaction kind of thing. Like, did it pee on him? If it was organic, was it just scared and it peed on him and it just happened to burn? And it was some kind of toxic, caustic chemical. So I'm now thinking maybe it was two different things that kind of coincided at the same time, that maybe he did get radiation burns from the fuel source and chemical burns from whatever it was that sprayed him.
That is a lot. And Clay, why were you playing laser tag after being struck with a blue beam from a gray? That just blows, like,
Yeah,
egging it on. I know we wanna know more though, right? But at the
right,
cost of what? He put himself through a lot of
right.
pain, definitely. So, when you were doing all of these interviews with Clay, did you ever spend, like, a good amount of time there on his property? And if so,
Well,
did you experience anything?
uh, we spent the night on the airport by ourselves. So my husband slept in the car some of the time, and I sat out on the lawn chair on the runway or on the taxiway. Um, and then, he would come out and sit for a while, and I'd try to sleep, but I couldn't sleep in the car. And we didn't have any unusual experiences. I wanted to. I'm like, come on down, come show yourselves. And then at some point we were out there interviewing him, and there were these two ladies who lived, you know, within 20 minutes of the airport, and they had been seeing the orbs or the ships that would dive into the ground, like he had seen a lot. And the one lady said to me, "You won't see them because you don't fear them." And I thought, well, that's kind of weird. But it kind of stuck with me, and I thought, well, am I not scared enough? Now, I'm not scared. I'm intrigued. I want to see them, kind of like Clay was. Now, he had a reason to be afraid. I have not seen them. I have not been shot at with a blue laser beam or whatever that thing was.
You needed a laser. You have to play tag with them.
That's right. So, yeah. So, I did not do that. Um, but then, so I thought, all right, she claims that I have to be afraid in order for them to come show themselves to me. So I thought, okay, I need to spend the night on the airfield by myself. So
That
I
would be
came out. I came out, I sitting there with my lawn chair, and I had my phone. Um, I had a gun, but I was out there by myself. And again, I'm trying to scare myself. I wasn't afraid. And so I'm trying to, what can I think of that'll scare me? And so I'm thinking, okay, well, I've got a book on my phone that's about two guys that were they encountered a UFO while they were out camping, and I thought, oh no, I don't want to read that because they got radiation burns from the craft. And so I said, okay, no radiation burn stories. I don't want to draw that to me. So and nothing happened then. But my team and I are going back out there soon, and we're going to spend the night out there. Uh, I don't know if any of us has a laser. You're not supposed to shine them in the sky anyway, at least not toward aircraft. So that
You
would
might
be,
be able to get away with it. Texas has a pretty big sky.
we do. We do.
It is kind of interesting that if there is collaboration between governments and the aliens, that they bring this, it's pretty obscure that there's been a couple incidents. I mean, I'm not saying that I don't know all the details, but that these incidents with a laser and an airline pilot, and then they do this broad sweeping thing where maybe the lasers are more apt or more effective in these encounters. And so they eliminate it because of this thing, but it has an effect with UFOs.
Yeah, and the folks that are doing these, what they're called CE5
Yeah.
events, where they're deliberately trying to draw the UFOs, they're using lasers.
Yeah.
So there must be some kind of caveat that if you're not shining them at an aircraft, in particular, if you're just shining them into the sky, it's okay. I'm not sure.
It's hard to know.
I'm curious, can you share without giving too much away about Clay's experience with the actual shooting and then burying an alien body?
Yeah, so so now with the one that shot the blue beam out, he knew they were dangerous. He didn't know if they were trying to kill him, but he knew that they could, and that his weapons probably wouldn't do much against theirs. Um, so some time passed, and then there was another alien in the shop when there were two of his employees there. And he just knee jerk shot it, and the thing fell. And he said that it started to outgas. So there was some kind of toxic vapors coming from the alien. And so he and his two employees got out of the hangar, and they waited for a while. And when they came back in, the alien was gone. And so he's thinking, he really didn't want to hurt them. He didn't want them to hurt him, but he really didn't want to hurt them. And so he was kind of thinking, gosh, I hope that like the alien paramedics came and got him and that he was going to be fine. They'll patch him up and he's going to be fine. But it left behind what he called a helmet. And when I got him to describe this helmet, I picture some big NASA helmet, but he said, no, it was more like a skull cap. You couldn't even tell that it had a helmet on because it just looked like its bald head. But then it left behind this thing. And so he said, so I put it in an ammo box and I buried it. So the next time something happened, he was there by himself. And again, there was a gray. And again, he just knee jerk, with the gun, he just fired because didn't know what the thing might do to him. So he shot it and it was dead.
Mm.
And so he looked at it and he's thinking, oh my God, what do I do? And he said to me, if you had told me 2 years before this that I would have an alien body and not put it in the back of my truck and go driving to every news station, go to the Oprah show, CNN, take it everywhere and show it off and say, it's real, look at what I've got. He said, I would have called you crazy. But he said, in that moment, I'm looking at this thing and he said, I was shorting out my everything in my brain was shorting out. He said, I needed time to think. So he put it in a couple of layers of black plastic bags or something and put that in a box. And then he took the box up to he had a cousin who owned a restaurant and the restaurant had a big walk-in freezer. So he takes this alien body wrapped in bags in a box, and he takes it up to his cousin's restaurant and says, I shot a feral pig. Now we have pigs running all over Texas and they're a real nuisance. So anybody who wants to shoot one is more than welcome to shoot them. So he said, I've got this feral pig that I shot and I just need you to keep it for me because some people eat them. And so he said, can you keep it in your freezer? And he says, sure. So he puts it in the cousin's freezer. And he took some time to think about it. And, the thing about Clay is that another one of the convincing things for me or compelling things that tells me I don't think he was trying to make up a story because for him, it was never about publicity. It was always about, when he searched out people to help him with it, he was looking for investigators, people who could help him understand what was going on, help him understand how to deal with it, or help him understand how to figure out how to better document it. But he wasn't looking for notoriety. He wasn't going everywhere and telling his story. So he realized that, okay, I've got to do right by this creature. And like I said, he wanted to know the aliens. He wanted to know what they knew. He was fascinated by what he believed that they were capable of. And like I said, he one night wanted to, was all packed up and ready to go for a ride in their spaceship, sat out on the runway with his little bag packed and ready to go, hoping that they would show him things and tell him things, maybe tell him what's going to happen in the future. So he had to do what's right. And throughout the course of all these events, he he had started out, he said, when all this started, I was about as religious as a hog. And he had been raised Catholic. His mom was Catholic. And he said that throughout the course of these events, he gradually connected more with his faith, because part of him actually believed that maybe all of these things had nothing to do with true aliens, but were more demonic
Mm.
manifestations, different manifestations of demonic influence. I can't say that it wasn't. I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting theory. But the bottom line was he became more and more reconnected with his faith throughout this. And so when it came time to do something with this body, he was really feeling responsibility for having murdered. In his mind, he felt like he was a murderer. And this really hurt his heart. Um, and so he brings the body back, and he built a box, and he buried it. And then, he said some words over it, like a little service. And that was that.
Mhm. Wow. That was that.
That
And so your team is planning on going to investigate that area where he claimed to have buried this being. Is that
That's
correct?
right. That's right. We have drones, we have ground penetrating radar, we have metal detectors, we have magnetometers, we have LIDAR, we have an exobiologist, and
You're prepared.
and we have a bomb technician, military, very experienced bomb technician, because Clay told my husband that he might have booby trapped the site,
Oh,
the burial site. Yeah.
well,
Oh,
And
oh my.
so yeah, so we have, and he said, I'm not sure, because I was on a lot of drugs at the time. Now, if a normal person, an average person that you talk to said I was on a lot of drugs at the time, you'd think they were talking about recreational drugs. But knowing his history, he had been hospitalized so many times. His health had gone downhill so many times. He had a blood clot in his lung,
Mhm.
that the doctor said would have killed a normal man. Um, so he was on prescription drugs. However, some of them were like pain meds after he had been dragged,
Mhm.
and when he was burned, because he had these. I think
He
they were
went through so much.
yeah.
yeah. So he had had reasons to be on pain meds, which I'm thinking, okay, was he hallucinating? He was acknowledging the fact that my memory's not as good as it was, because of all this stuff that happened to me. I
Mhm.
I may have booby trapped the site. So we are having to be extremely careful. We've got some teams of bomb sniffing dogs that we're hoping will come out and help us when we get to that point, before we excavate the box or the container that the body's in. The bomb tech will be in charge. He will be calling the shots, but we will have the dogs kind of give us a clue as to whether or not they sense any explosives. But even if they don't, the bomb tech is going to call the shots. We're going to treat it as if it is booby trapped.
Massive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Better to be safe than sorry,
Right.
Pat.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this is still under investigation. It sounds like still more answers to discover. So much still going on. And it's my understanding that Clay has since transitioned. So when did he pass?
Well, actually, both my brother Jim and Clay are now
Mm.
gone. So
So you're taking on the investigation still the same.
that's right.
Mm.
So yeah, my brother had a heart attack in his sleep right before he was supposed to come down to Texas to interview Clay and
Mm.
film
Wow.
and dig up the body. And then a little over a year later, Clay I had done a video memorial for my brother's to honor my brother, and I sent it out to everybody who knew him. And I never heard back from Clay. And Clay and I we had been in touch either by phone or by email almost every day, and he had been real close to my brother, so I knew that there was something not right because he hadn't said anything. Clay hadn't said anything to me, like, oh, I saw the memorial video.
Mhm.
So I contacted his sister and I said, is he okay? And she said, no, he's in the hospital. He has multiple organ failure and flesh-eating bacteria. And if he survives, they're going to have to cut off lots of his skin and do transplants. And then the next day he died.
Wow.
So as you said, I'm now, taking the torch and trying to do justice to the
Mhm.
efforts of both of the men that are now gone.
Well, I think that is fantastic, Pat, that you're continuing on investigating
Thank
his
you.
experiences that took place. Unbelievable story. I wish we had more time. I just have
Right.
been drawn in this entire time with you. It is extraordinary. I mean, I don't even have words for half of the things that you said, but I'm really excited to read the book. And everyone else ought to grab a copy too. I got mine off of Amazon. Where else can they find a copy?
Well, it's on Amazon exclusively.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Go to Amazon.
Yep.
Seems to be the place to grab a book these days, and soon it will be available um,
Yeah.
on Audible.
Hopefully in the next month or so we'll have it out on audio.
Perfect. Perfect. And then everyone make sure you check out the site Experiencers. That's with an X, just an X, not an E. Experiencers.com so you can learn more about Pat and her team and the book. Wow. I wish we had more time, Pat. It has been so fantastic listening to you and the time that you have given to us. We're so grateful for. Thank you so very much.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure visiting with you too.
Quite a storyteller. You had us drawn in
You're
the
good.
whole time we couldn't even talk. I need words. So good. And to all the listeners, thank you for being here with us tonight and participating in the chat rooms all over the place. So good. Oh, Pat, before we go, are you on Facebook or Instagram or anything?
Uh, there is an experiencers Facebook, but I'm not doing anything with it right now. I've
Oh,
just
that's
been
okay.
so busy, but
Yeah,
yes, there is
you've
a
got a
Facebook
lot
page.
going on.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it has been a pleasure, my dear. Thank you again.
Well, thank
And
you again.
thank you so much. You guys are the best. We wouldn't be here without you. We'll see you all next week. Until then, be good to yourself and be good to each other. We'll see you then. Good night.
Have a good one.